Today on the Daily Charge, Microsoft bets big on their new dual-screen Duos and Neos going up against Apple and Samsung, taking a test ride in New York City's first Uber Copter, and the full review of the Galaxy Fold.
CNET's Daily Charge. It's Thursday, October 3rd. I'm Ben Fox-Rubin.
And I'm Scott Stein.
And here are today's headlines. Okay, after 5 months of delay, the Samsung Galaxy Fold is now on sale. It's $2,000. It's got a foldable plastic 7.3-inch OLED screen, and its second screen is 4.3 inches on the front. But Scott, will it revolutionize the smartphone?
Well, I think Samsung's trying to figure out where, and a lot of companies are trying to figure out where to revolutionize the smartphone. But I think this is not the point to get on board. Looking at Jessica's review on CNET, it's expensive. It doesn't have the water and dust resistance. It's a fragile phone. Battery life is shorter. Nobody has figured out really how to use these screens with software and apps. So these are a huge amount of drawbacks on a $2,000 phone compared to anything else on the market that Samsung or anyone else makes. So you can tell between this and Microsoft that people are trying to figure out the future, but we're not there yet. And you're basically buying a prototype concept device at a premium.
So one thing that Jessica mentions at the end of her video review is that foldable phones are not an inevitability. We're still kind of like groping around to try to figure out what the future of smartphones are. What's your perspective on that? Because you write a ton about phones.
Yeah.
Obviously, the iPhone has been very incremental the past couple of years, but there is this expectation that eventually Apple will get into a foldable phone. Do you see it as a potential inevitability, or is this at least something that we're going to be dabbling around with smartphones for at least the next couple of years?
I think we're definitely going to take stabs at it, but I look at phones and future tech, and I use a lot of different devices. I mean, I'm not saying everyone will do this, but I wear a lot of things on my face. I will experiment with, VR and AR. I think about like where those screens are coming from. Maybe it's on the phone. Maybe it's something you're casting to. I still like the idea of phones that connect to something else and become
like a
Samsung
TV.
DeX. Yeah, becomes a monitor for a computer. It connects to your TV. We've talked about that for years, and we're not really there still, but it's obviously technically possible. I think that there's a convenience to folding it open, but I think the ways that you get your second screen and your extra information are going to come from all over the place.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's the promise of 5G. That's the promise of like this super streaming, interconnected life. So by the time we get to dual screens, I feel like we're also going to have many other ways to tackle that. So I like it, but I didn't like the Nintendo DS when it came out, and then I liked it later. So maybe I'll change my mind on folding phones, but they seem cumbersome to me.
Well, speaking of the Nintendo DS,
yeah,
Microsoft.
Got to bring it up.
I'm sorry, that was a little mean, but I'm going to do it anyway. Microsoft introduced another concept for the folding phone at its launch event yesterday, the Microsoft Surface Duo. It has two 5.6-inch displays connected by a hinge in the middle. It also doesn't come out until later next year.
Right.
So this is kind of a hinge instead of a crease.
Mm-hmm.
How revolutionary do you look at this, or do you just think it's kind of two displays pasted together?
Well, other phones have done this too, and we've listed them on CNET, and there have been hinged dual screen phones, but Microsoft doing this is really exciting and interesting. I think it's a bet on, again, trying to figure out that future. I think I like the laptop one, the Neo, more.
The bigger one.
Yeah, because I think you're going to unfold it and use it like a laptop, and I love that keyboard. So you have a real physical keyboard that's going to shift around and become the trackpad or the touch bar thing, which they call Wonder Bar, but whatever. So that's trying to figure out, like, I don't want to type on a screen, but I want a keyboard, and it looks like the super iPad. That's exciting. The other one is a bigger phone. It's two 5.6-inch displays, so it's a big whatever that is.
Right, that's the Duo.
The Duo, which is but what's fascinating to me is the collaboration with Google and Android. Microsoft plus Google Android, to me, says that Google can obviously work on making dual screen phones now, but maybe the use cases aren't there. Microsoft is a practically minded productivity company. So this is a year-long task to figure out, can we come up with functional things, which I'm sure they will. So I think that's a great company to put on tackling that challenge, and will benefit all the Android folding phones.
Sure. Okay. It sounds promising.
Do you know what I mean? But it's like
absolutely.
It's a research project. It's like we'll see
I,
what it is when it
I
gets
agree
there.
with you on that. However,
Yeah.
if anything, people have started to get a little bit uncomfortable with the creeping prices in phones.
Yeah, we don't
and
know.
This is potentially doubling the price of $1,000 phone. We already know the Fold is $2,000. This phone, the Duo, is probably going to be really expensive
They're bound
too.
to be expensive.
Do you think people are going to balk at this, and only neo hipsters are going to be really interested in purchasing these?
Yeah, I think people will balk at it or would just choose not to get it. I think this is something, again, like they're going to lead with this as a future move, have it bleed down into other types of products that kind of happen with other. And there have been tons of weird Windows laptops and devices over the past number of years. So this is almost like just more of that plus Android. I don't think a lot of people do it. I think it's good if it's an all-in-one do-everything thing. Like if it's your laptop, if it's your tablet, if it's your communicator or whatever you want to call it.
Well, you're paying enough for it.
You're paying enough.
You would hope so.
It better be. Yeah, it's like your car. So hopefully it's that. The fact that they have two devices, though, suggests that they haven't quite solved the do-everything between all of it, because you do have to now pick the small or large. How small is that small? Does it feel good to type on? How many apps are going to be working nicely in that?
Which one is going to be more like a laptop? I wonder if the Neo, which is the bigger one, is almost like a laptop. Either way,
I gotta think the Neo is going to feel more Microsoft-y.
I do want to get to one more story. This is not about foldable phones, unfortunately, but maybe a phone will do this one day. Uber is making its Ubercopter service to JFK Airport available to all its customers around New York City. You pay $200 to get a drive to a helipad, then a helicopter to the airport. The total time in the air is about 8 minutes. Would you use this service? $200 to the airport fairly seamlessly, and you get a nice view of stuff?
It's amazing. It's like a John Carpenter movie in 2019. Like it's escaping Manhattan for real in a helicopter. The price does not seem as high as I thought it would be.
No, it doesn't. But then again, like a lot of this stuff is subsidized, I would think, starting off.
Sure. Hey, if that goes from New Jersey to JFK, that would be pretty snazzy for 200. Sure, in a pinch. And then how many are there available? Like, would you, if suddenly, it seems like an emergency move. Like traffic is backed up, I need to make my flight. But will it be available to escape the city at that point in the event of your emergency?
The zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, zombie apocalypse, and then the Uber helicopter is not there. It's the price seems surprisingly good.
I might even try it for that price. Yeah,
I'm envious that Tim Stevens got to try it out. He did, right?
And check out the video. Definitely, the video is a lot of fun. So
it's crazy.
Anyway, now we want to turn to our live audience to see what questions you have about today's headlines. You can sound off here in the comments, or feel free to tweet at us at The Daily Charge on Twitter anytime, day or night, and we'll do our best to follow up and keep the conversation going. But for now, let's take a look at what's on folks' minds today. So, BVG, what have we got?
Okay, so first and foremost, since we're on the topic of the Ubercopter, is that the formal name, by the way? Is it just Ubercopter? Or is there
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Ubercopter.
Ubercopter.
That's kind of fun to say. Ubercopter.
Uberchoppa.
Just to confirm, the ride to the helipad, that's part of that fee, right? So the car picks you up, takes you to the helipad, then you get on the helicopter. That's all one price, right?
I'm not 100% sure, but let me see if I can find out. I don't know 100%. I do know the ride itself is $200, but if you are coming from further away, I'm not sure if they're going to give you such a break.
Do you get Surge Copter?
Yeah, you might get Surge Copter. I don't know.
Everybody wants to leave Manhattan.
I will try to find out while we're discussing.
That's about as much for that helicopter ride to get me to the airport. For any air ride I would take. I don't do a lot of traveling. I don't go very far, so I'm like going back and forth between upstate Buffalo area. That's about a $200 round trip plane ticket, so I'm doubling down to get the helicopter ride there. It would be fun, though. It would be fun. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Next question. Let's take one from Imagine Sagi. He says, did you just call the Duo a phone? Now, help me here, guys. I know that there's been a lot of buzz and back and forth from Microsoft that the Duo is not a phone. So what the hell are we calling it?
It is a phone.
What is
it takes phone calls.
What is a computer? What is a phone?
It's okay. Yeah, I understand that on stage they said this isn't just a phone.
Right.
It's a Surface device.
We don't really
but it's a
know-
phone. It takes phone calls. So what else is it?
And we don't know the band, the cellular situation. I mean, yeah, if you're really into phones, you want to know how it connects and how the antennas are and everything. We don't know those details, but it can be used as a phone.
Yeah, as part
Maybe
of
it's
the
more of a
sizzle reel.
tablet.
As,
Right.
as part of the sizzle reel, the woman opened it up, folded it all the way around, and then put it in her ear. I mean, it looked like a smartphone. Now, that is an additional interesting usage right there, where you're using it for a phone call, but afterward, is there a possibility you might be able to use both of the out-facing screens for something? I don't really know. In general, a lot of these phones, the foldable phones, it's the whole beauty and the interest of them is that it's a more immersive experience when you open it up and you almost use it like a tablet. I do wonder if people are going to get a little, taken out of that moment because of the hinge in the middle, as opposed to the Galaxy Fold's crease. But I like the fact that there are some differences in the market. So kind of get an impression on what people like more than others.
I mean, I never minded the crease on the 3DS.
Right.
I found it.
Which
I
is
still was
huge.
immersed in all of those games with that fold. So maybe that was the future product.
Yeah. Yeah. I do honestly believe that we're gonna the Galaxy Fold is gonna have to get more robust and a little less delicate, obviously. And the prices are absolutely going to have to go down.
The
before
memo
these
has
become
been
anywhere
clearly
close.
written. And maybe future folds will not have that super flexible screen design. Maybe they will also go to the hinged dual display.
Yeah, it's possible.
Something that's Gorilla Glass and, like those others, because anything that flexes like that, you worry about breakage.
Sure.
So,
I'm gonna say naively.
phablet.
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 Well,
return
like a
of the phablet.
foldable phablet.
It is a foldable
phablet, and I, honestly, that's a little more disappointing in my mind that it's just a hinged thing that you can see. That's not really so futuristic.
We have been here before. We have been here in different ways in the past with folding devices and with dual devices, and I think about the weird explosion
And
of nested devices, strange phone forms before the iPhone, that whole 2004 to 2007 period where the sidekick would flip up, and we may be heading towards that point now with devices where we're re-experimenting before we hit the new form that we settle on.
Yeah.
So there could be like a 4-year period of evolution explosion.
I think that would be fun, at least for reporters and reviewers to see that kind of thing. We'll see if the market is interested. We'll see if consumers are interested. But I know from our perspective, what was really that different with the iPhone this year, other than they added a camera?
Incremental. It's every year it's incremental, and it's like laptops when laptops were still having significant increases in the processor speed, where every year gets a little bit better, and then you'll probably cap off on those types of phones and say, okay, we're already kind of there. People get phones every 3 or 4 years, a lot of people that I know, where they go, okay, I don't need a couple of new features, even if they're interesting.
Sure, absolutely.
We're splitting hairs over here in the chat. Michael Brown asks, is it technically a phablet? Commander Tram points out that might be an internal Microsoft name, but can it be a phablet when it closes only down to 5.6 inches?
Well,
can you fold it around
Semantics.
reverse?
Semantics.
I think
Yeah,
right. I agree with
sure.
you, BVG. Does it really matter what we call it? I mean, it makes phone calls.
He says, Michael suggests 2-in-1.
That suggests a laptop or like a tablet laptop.
2-in-1.
Like
Maybe call it Duo.
a duo.
A Duo
Right.
would be a great name for it.
I always
think
saw a
we don't have-
2-in-1 as something that's in the tablet with a keyboard type of thing, or a
We
or
never
a
had good.
laptop.
We never had good names for all those Windows laptops, hybrids and flippables,
Ultrabooks and flippables.
tentables.
Tentables.
I don't know, the yoga and like all the.
Sure.
I wrote a piece way back that was about like the whole like evolutionary explosion of the different families. It felt like looking at like a bird that had created multiple
All the
branches of
different
evolution.
finches, yeah.
Right. This is the one that has the flexible hip, and this is the one that has the screen pop out. We're going to have a lot of things, or we don't have good names for them.
We'll have a good name for it if
Let's have a
it's
contest.
somehow,
Right.
if for whatever reason this becomes super popular it will get a name. And at this point, it's foldables, I guess, is the closest thing you get to it.
Foldables.
Foldables.
Yeah, foldables is like, it's like wearables. It's like acceptable.
Sure.
We should have a CNET contest to come up with the best name for these random things.
Either way, Michael, is that an acceptable name for you? A foldable as opposed to, I don't know, a 2-in-1?
Let's go ahead and farm it out. If anybody comes up with a
We don't
good
have a good
name,
name.
because right now, I'm going to be devil's advocate. Most of the names on these devices suck. Tweet at us. We'll make up a hashtag, something like name that folder. I don't know. And try to come up
Name
with
that
the
folder.
better category for this type of device, whether
Look.
it is 2-in-1, whether it is a phablet. Come up with something completely unique. I don't care.
Look.
But yeah, tweet at us.
Look, Nintendo DS. Nintendo never came up with a good name for that device.
Yeah, it was just the
DS is not a
DS.
good name.
It's short for dual screen, right?
Right. They just gave up. Nintendo DS, and it did very well. So, it doesn't really matter what you call these things. Things succeed regardless. There you go.
I just want electronics to be named like cars, like the Ford Escape or the Bronco, or wouldn't that be way cooler if your phone was like, oh, this is the Cougar?
The Microsoft Victory.
I agree with you.
What the
that
hell is a Victory?
Like
I don't know. What's a Cougar?
No, see,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or
That's
what's
the
a
response you want to
Telluride?
elicit. Now I'm intrigued. What's a Victory?
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. The Microsoft Wombat.
I
lost
agree
me.
that the iPhone names have kind of veered into refrigerator names, where it's the iPhone
Right.
6G-S7 II.
11 Mark BX. iPhone 11 Pro Max.
Max S Beta.
It's like you feel like you have to take a breath.
Do a better job, guys.
Okay, let's
You
have
can-
let's
you
have
can
some.
do a little better.
We're on a groove here. Let's have some fun with this. What would Apple's pretentious, gimmicky name be for something of a device of this sort?
The Steve. What? That's pretentious. He's the man that invented this phone. Now we're gonna name it after him.
We call it the iPhone Flex
Oh my God,
Instead of-
you're right.
instead of iPhone X. The iPhone Flen.
That might actually fly.
You're painfully
I'm not
correct,
sure
Scott.
if you're
I
joking.
pronounced Flen like 10.
The Flen. That's a great idea. The Flen.
There
the
you
X
go.
is a 10.
Flex. And it's like we had a new vision. Can you deal? I mean, Pro and Air are probably overdone. But you need something new.
Uh-huh. I don't know. Do you have any expectation that they're actually going to come out with a foldable phone at the next iPhone event next year? Because my expectation is that they're going to push 5G at that event.
Right.
So if we are going to get a foldable from Apple, it might not be until the year afterward, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the area where they could really apply this the most, frankly, would be the iPad territory because
Like a foldable iPad.
Yeah, well, it's also I think the battery life would probably handle better. I think the iPad still has work to be done to figure out where it's going to land, and it's still evolving. Whereas the phone, I mean, the iPhone, again, you can hate it, you can find it boring. It's also really solid and polished. So it's like it's a ride.
It does what it does.
Right.
Yeah.
You could do a lot worse. Like these are good moments when you have products that are so solid and polished and perform great. That's a great moment for it's boring tech, like the John Falcone thing I always say. So that's the thing is you don't want to
a good
change
point.
that up too much because Apple kind of like creates these perfect objects, I feel like, and then they kind of put them aside.
If it works, it works.
And then it gets annoying because then years go by. Like the MacBook Air, before they changed it, kind of just turned into the same product for like 4 years. And it was like, we're done. And then they did change it, and then things got annoying. But I feel like the iPhone is approaching that moment of like, it feels like it's done. But
So-
then where do you go from there?
So I think it's interesting what you mentioned with the iPad. So I remember reading sci-fi books that talk about the idea of devices that are as thin as a sheet of paper that you would
Yeah.
be able to fold like a sheet of paper. And it's just basically, it's your newspaper, it's your phone, it's whatever the hell you want to use it for. I think this is proving the fact that that's great for a sci-fi book, but look how difficult it is for these major corporations with oodles of money and R&D budgets to actually create just the first iteration of these types of things. So I think that they obviously perceive that future in a similar way that we all have. However, it's much harder to do than, it's not that easy to execute.
And I'd rather have a Moleskine type thing, Moleskine, that unfolds into a more laptop-like form than a phone-size thing that evolves into a tablet-type form. To me, it's like more useful to me because I feel like I got to do work on something, so I like the idea of something that won't be as bulky as a laptop that I could maybe not stick in my pocket. That's just me. So I love that Microsoft keyboard that seems to magnetically or whatever attach and shift on the Neo. That stood out in my mind as the most exciting idea if it works well. So
It was loco.
yeah, I think about that, especially when like the iPad doesn't even have a trackpad yet. That I think about where the iPad could go a little bit more. Because right, next year is going to be about 5G for Apple, most likely, and just solving that.
BVG.
Yeah, actually, people have been really patient, so let's try to knock out some actual questions here.
Sorry, we just went.
We've had our fun, and now it's over.
We should have a little interruption
it is the
flag.
Q&A section.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Please go.
Commander Trium, so with Windows 10X, is Microsoft getting ready to launch a new series of Android-based phones? Secondly, will 10X work with HoloLens?
Yeah, where was HoloLens? I don't know about HoloLens, but I got to see it in February, and it was cool, but it's also priced for no one normal. This is a total enterprise use case device per Microsoft. Microsoft has been really quiet on any of the VR fronts aside from that. But I think it does bear some interesting questions about, where else could X go? Peripherals would be interesting. Like, that I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
So answering the first question,
let's answer
I think
the
they're gonna try the Duo first.
Yes.
And see if people are interested. It's possible that this is just an experimental phone. They put it on a shelf afterward. I don't think anybody expects it to be a big seller. So they're going to have to internally decide whether they want to make a Gen 2 of this, whether that results in more forms for the Gen 2. I don't know. We'll see. We still have another year to go before it actually hits the market. So it's going to be a bit slow and steady on that part of that question.
Yeah, the Duo I agree, feels much more like a research experiment. Neo really feels like the beginning of something totally new for Microsoft. And between that and ARM processors, there's a really interesting flow into where Surface goes next that I think is already out there.
All right, still on the same topic, we're talking a little bit more about Microsoft. Datcher asks, Microsoft is such a tease for making us wait over a year. Is there a chance that Neo and Duo will just be vaporware?
No, that would be such a letdown. They made that their big one more thing event.
Absolutely. And there's always
that
a
is
chance.
The definition of vaporware.
There's always a chance. I mean, but I don't think so.
Their point in providing it this early was to get it in developers' hands so that developers could actually do something cool with it and justify the price for it.
And these are there's nothing vaporware about the idea of a hinge dual screen device. These are totally achievable, real things. So it's not something that is you see it there, it exists, and it's really just about making, like you say, the software. And that just is about time and getting people on board. So it doesn't feel like it would be.
But yeah, it's a great question, Datch.
Yeah.
Because
as always,
it's entirely possible, and it's a good thing to address.
Air power.
Yes. More questions.
Remember air power.
Let's spend the last couple of minutes on the Ubercopter. Sorry, I'm going to keep messing that up.
It should be Uberchopper.
I have not, by the way,
Uberchopper.
figured out if it's an additional cost to drive over there.
I can't imagine. That's got to be bundled in. It wouldn't make sense if it wasn't, though.
It's all
they say
one
they're gonna
click.
pick you up.
Except what if you were 15 miles away? At that point,
you're already spending $200.
You're getting so much
nickel and dime you. I don't know.
But you're getting good Uber value for the car ride then folded in. I don't know. It's a good question. I'm sure it flexes.
I'm sorry I hadn't been able to find that on the fly. So.
Anyways, we can try to help more. Is the Uber helicopter service similar to ride sharing like with cars? Now, expanding on this, here's a wild idea from our friend Yan. Uber could use rooftops of some buildings as drop-off and pickup points, and people can use those helicopters in a ride-sharing manner. So essentially, it's roof sharing, and I think there's probably like some kind of legal problem with that,
codes.
right?
Yes, there's
But
some
I mean,
codes.
what if
codes.
You need a helipad.
This is Blade Runner. You're basically describing Blade Runner.
Right.
Just people will show up with origami animals and then take you for a ride.
But he's
around
got a
the
point.
city.
It does kind of defeat the purpose if you have to take a car ride to the helipad already, and the helipad's on the other side of the city or something like that.
no, I
I mean, this
disagree.
is the most
I
first world
disagree.
conversation that we have ever had on
Is it
this
very
show.
first
If
But-
you've ever had to deal with the hell of getting to JFK,
Yeah.
there's you have to go over like a causeway where it's just super narrow, and you're stuck in traffic no matter what time of day it is, no matter what day of the week it is. So the idea of doing an 8-minute ride, regardless if you have to drive over somewhere, you are almost certainly going to be saving time doing a helicopter as opposed to driving over there.
I'm not taking that away from
bad.
you. It is a nightmare to get to JFK, but it's also sometimes just a nightmare to get across Midtown.
I just finished watching the first episode of American Horror Story Apocalypse, and they're really trying to get to Santa Monica Airport because of the apocalypse. And it's tough, and they don't all make it. So, like, they would have loved to have Uber Chopper, but who knows if they would
For
have
the
made it
low
to
price
the
of $200
Who
per
knows if they would have
person.
made it to that helipad? So
I would have liked to see that
there you
as
go.
like a sponsored content within that. They're like, let's do the Uber Chopper.
as seen in American Horror Story Apocalypse.
Right.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it is tough to get to airports, fictionally or otherwise.
Right.
I'm just saying multiple locations of pickup, why wouldn't that be better? And I'm sure there are some wealthy people around Manhattan who probably can afford or already have a helipad on their house to just rent that out.
It's the first Uber
no way.
diversifies. I'm sure, it's the first step. There will be other, if this does well, I'm sure there will be other I would imagine there will be other helipads. It
I
doesn't seem like a
agree.
crazy, that does not seem like the very next step.
I would argue, though,
For
if
the
I'm
city.
BVG, if I'm rich enough to have a helipad in Manhattan, I am not farming it out to anybody else. That is my helipad.
No, it's like
What about-
Airbnb for helipads. You make a couple extra bucks on top.
What about just like, you just get like whatever nearby helicopter there is, where it's like, they're going to be coming over in a few minutes, and like they'll move the stuff out of the back where you can put your luggage. There might be some like gifts that they've bought.
They don't
like,
even
some
they
like
don't even
blankets and
land.
other things.
They don't
Yeah.
even land. They
They
just
don't
throw that
land.
ladder thing down at you, and you go and you climb up while they're still
Ubercopter
flying.
Like in
X.
Batman.
It's just like whatever flying vehicles are around the city that might want to give you a ride.
You just grab onto 2 seagulls, and they help you get to the airport.
I got a hang glider.
Right.
Come on, I'm Birdman. There you go. That's an absurdity. That's how serious I take the question of like more helipads in the city.
Well, this has been a great conversation. We do have to wrap things up, though, because I have to go to Comic-Con. But in
Oh,
the
sweet.
meantime,
Nice.
closing thoughts for the week. What is the next thing Uber is going to Uberfy? Go.
Mani Petties. Mani Petty anywhere, anytime.
Nanotechnology.
Nanotechnology?
Yeah,
The
biological nanotech.
Explain.
Uber colonoscopy.
Stop.
Small Uber
Don't do
small
it.
Uber drones. Check out your
Check out your
your
health,
gut health.
needs.
Yeah.
Okay, those are both terrible ideas.
Martin
For me
Short
too. For
Martin
me
Short
too.
shrinks down, goes into a little tiny vehicle for a tiny surge prices to check
Here's-
out how you're. Am I even saying this right now? I can't believe I'm saying
Pretty
this.
funny. I
There we
like
go.
it. Okay,
There, who knows?
let's let BVG get to
Uber, but
Comic-Con.
for Comic Con.
Uber doctors? Yeah,
Uber-
let's do
Uber
that.
doctor.
Uber doctors, Uber stand-up comics.
Oh, I would love that. These are
What?
good. You're getting onto something. You're
I'm-
warming up.
Getting there.
Cool.
Uber carpenters.
I don't even know where to go anymore.
Uber, but for wood crafting,
Sure.
I need something crafted.
That was a weird one.
Astrolabe. Why am I
Okay.
not? Who's making that?
Save me.
Ben,
Save me from
take
this.
us home.
Sorry.
All right. Oh,
That's
thank
what
God.
happens when
All
I'm
right.
tired.
Thanks everybody for all your questions. If you enjoyed the show, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. We are live every weekday morning here on YouTube, Periscope, and CNET.com. Also, you can subscribe to our audio podcast as well as the new and improved Supercharge extended podcast on pretty much every platform available. Links to all of these are in the description below for the Daily Charge. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
And I'm Scott Stein.
Thanks everybody for joining us.
Can't get enough? Check out the Daily Supercharge, our extended post show with special features, audience Q&A, and in-depth reviews. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.